Good morning, everybody. I'm Sheila Boyington. I'm the CEO of Learning Blade, and this is just one of the most honored times in my professional career today is to get to share the stage with this amazing leader. Our conference has the title of CS Game Changer. This is a game changer that I'm blessed to sit next to. What Governor Hutchinson of Arkansas, for those of you that don't know him, has led computer science for our country. I told him a really funny story a couple years ago. Dave, my husband and I were in California, and they're like, we want to be like Arkansas when it comes to computer science. Well, rarely do you hear that from the South. And of course, I live here in Tennessee. So it's my pleasure and honor to introduce you all to Governor Asa Hutchinson.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheila. And I was listening to Senator Watson right before, and what a leader here in Tennessee. I'm delighted the work that's being done here to promote computer science and to see all the educators that are here. I just want to encourage you and thank you for engaging in this because, you know, as we started this initiative in Arkansas, and I was elected governor 8 years ago, so I'm in the end of my second term. So we've been at it a while. And during that time, we've made incredible progress, but it's impacted a nation. And I've become to realize how important computer science is for the security of our country. You see it every day. We'll talk about that, but Sheila, it's great to be with you, and thanks for this opportunity.
Yes, and I would be remiss if I didn't also recognize Senator Bo Watson, happens to be my senator, because I live in Chattanooga, and we are very blessed to have Senator Watson leading in our state to help make computer science and STEM a reality. So definitely want to say that. But Governor, I think people that know me know I'm sort of chill most of the time, although hyper chill, I don't know what to call it. I love for people to get to know you a little bit personally because I feel like that's when people will understand where your heart is. So I'd love you to share a little bit about like what you were like in high school. I know a little bit about some sports you might play and a little bit about something about hitchhiking that you did.
Well, of course, I grew up in a different day and time, but teachers still make all the difference in education. And as I grew up in the small town of Gravette, lived on a farm, and then I went to Springdale for high school, which is a larger school. And, you know, I was a competitive student. That's when you actually like to compete with others on grades. I don't know if that's even acceptable these days, but we competed, and I was challenged by it. So I enjoyed learning. Now, you know, I also had a lot of fun, played sports, and had a good time. But, you know, I was one of those students that wasn't really sure what I wanted to do in life. And in fact, my mom and dad had high school educations. They couldn't guide you into college very well. And I had a job in high school working in a factory. I made more money than I ever did. And I told my brother, you know, I just might keep doing this and skip college. And he looked at me like I was crazy. And he said, no, you got to go. So I did go to college, but I didn't know what my major should be. So my major was accounting. And I picked it because it was the first major listed alphabetically in the catalog. And so, you know, I got a degree in accounting, and then I got into debate, and I enjoyed that. I said, I think I'm going to go to law school. And so, you know, life unfolds, and all the students, you know, can't figure it out, you know, necessarily when you're in high school. But life unfolded for me in interesting ways, and small town practiced the law and ultimately got into politics, and a few things happened to me along that line.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is interesting because even when I was in high school, they told me I should be an accountant, and I've never balanced my checkbook. And so I became an engineer instead, which I loved, and now an entrepreneur. And I think, you know, we all are shaped by what happens to us in school. And teachers, I know there's so many teachers here, you're so critical in the path that students take, no question about it. And parents are too. And, you know, so we've got a lot of work that we still need to do, and just really thrilled to be, you know, part of this work in this country.
Well, now you mentioned hitchhiking, so I had to,
Yes,
you know,
we
you don't want to leave people hanging on that particular topic. But my girlfriend then, actually, she wasn't even a girlfriend; she was a prospective girlfriend, and she moved to Memphis to teach school here, and so she taught school in Memphis while I was going to law school in Fayetteville, and so my memories of Memphis is hitchhiking, because I had a car, a 69 Plymouth Valiant, but I couldn't afford to put gas in there and buy books at the same time. It's sort of like in today's world of high gas prices. And so I parked the car and I hitchhiked back and forth to Memphis. And so Susan would drop me off on the weekends. I'd hitch up I-40. So I don't recommend this for your students or for you. It doesn't impress a future father-in-law very well whenever Susan goes home and says, yeah, I'm marrying a hitchhiker.
Yes. Well, of course, and that wonderful woman is now your partner and has been, what, 49 years now?
49 years, that's
Yeah,
right.
so she's amazing too, just like you. So make sure everybody you tell Susan that we mentioned her too, because she's very important in this conversation. So moving on to kind of tell the story a little bit about how computer science really has become your badge, I think, of honor and what you really believe in. Tell us a little bit about, like, I know you were a representative in the House and then you got appointed as part of Homeland Security and other things. Tell us a little bit about how that shaped kind of where you saw computer science and the importance of it.
I'm going to spend just a little bit of time on that because I think it's important. And so I'm a lawyer and I'm not a techie person, but I was on the Intelligence Committee in Congress, so I was exposed to the threats to the United States. And then I was head of the DEA. And after I was appointed by President Bush and confirmed by the Senate to head up the DEA, 1 month after that, the 9/11 attack occurred. So all of our infrastructure, all of our law enforcement community was focused on terrorism. And that gave me really the first experience with technology. And for example, we were trying to put the pieces together for the terrorists who attacked the United States and what their linkages were. And you've heard of pocket litter. And so the best intelligence that we were getting was pocket litter, because then you arrest somebody, you get a little pocket litter, and sometimes they'd write a telephone number on a little piece of paper. Well, you would run that telephone number through databases and you would start developing linkages and we were able to go and work with the FBI on all the linkages in terrorism. And it was technology, it was data analytics. And then fast forward, when Homeland Security was set up, we had this huge challenge of stopping terrorists from coming into our country, or a nuclear weapon, dirty bomb they called it, might come in a container ship, and we don't inspect every container that comes to the United States of America. And so, thank goodness we have the National Targeting Center that are made up of geeks. That's probably not the right word for it, but they were techies.
There are plenty of geeks here, and I'm fine with the word geek.
They were software developers and analytics, and they would take massive amounts of data, and they would zero in based upon their analytics and say, this container right here is a suspicious container, you ought to inspect it. And there was one that came through the port that was labeled as frozen fish. Well, they said that's a suspicious one. We opened it up and it was a shipment of illegal arms headed for South America. It's just an example of how technology, I could see it work in protecting our country. And we had our men and women overseas in the global war on terrorism, but it was also the National Targeting Center, is the data analytics. It was a software development that we utilize as one of our greatest tools. And you have to utilize that in a free society. Because you don't want to search everything. You want to analyze more data, which raises privacy issues. And we had a chief privacy officer as well. And when you talk about education in the world of computer science, the breadth of the fields is almost breathtaking and exciting. I mean, you've got the data analytics side, you've got the cybersecurity side, you've got the AI side, you've got on, and including the ethical side, you know, where you have to really understand privacy and ethics as you develop technology. These are all realms that they have to start thinking through these in high school, in the classes that you have, and the breadth of the opportunity is incredible for our country.
I mean, it's so true. And, you know, if you think about it, like, and you talk about all these different types of careers, there's also the different industries, right, that you're in. And, you know, a lot of people don't think about what all types of industries they can go into if they get a computer science background, even something like insurance. Nobody grows up saying, I want to be in insurance. No, but there are so many data and, you know, CS jobs in that. So let's move on to, you know, now you kind of had that experience in your federal sort of time, and then came back to Arkansas to run for governor. And I think you like started talking about computer science while you were running for governor, which a lot of people were like, that seems kind of strange, but obviously you were right. And of course, I love the story about your granddaughter and Ella Beth. And can you tell the audience a little bit about that?
Well, so this is 2014. I'm running for governor, and my son-in-law actually comes to me, and who's involved in sort of a tech business, but he's a good thought leader, and he says, you'd better grab this initiative on computer science or somebody else is going to do it. Well, he was right on part of it, that computer coding was a good issue, but nobody else was threatening to grab it at that point. It was early on. And at that time, I remember the statistic was that 10% of high schools in the United States of America offered computer science, only 10%. Today, that's over 50%. You can see the progress that was made. But my granddaughter, Ella Beth, I tell the story, she was 11 years old, and she wanted to help Papaw on the campaign, so she developed a mobile campaign app. 11 years old, and she did it, helped with working with her dad, sort of a project, but you could volunteer, you could donate, you know, all the things that an app should do. And I said, you know, if Ella Beth can do that at 11 years old, just think what we all can do if we have this kind of exposure and education in computer science. So I think I'm the first candidate ever in the history of the United States that spent $1 million on advertising saying we're going to put computer coding in every high school in Arkansas. And guess what? I mean, everybody sort of rolled their eyes. You're going to get elected on this. But it was a very specific initiative, and it caught on. And the best thing about it was that whenever you have a campaign issue and you get elected, you have a mandate. And so I go in, and you know, the legislature passed my initiative because the voters said, hey, that's what we want. And so it gave us a tremendous amount of momentum early on in Arkansas. And it was important for us to pass the law, which mandated computer science to be offered in every high school. And then we put money behind that to incentivize teachers to get professionally credentialed so they could teach it. And all of a sudden you had French teachers that were switching to computer science. You had assistant football coaches that were coming up to me and saying, thank you for getting me out of 2-a-day practices. I'm now in the classroom teaching computer science. And so we had a transition, and we went from 20 teachers in 2015 that could teach computer science. And today, I just got the number today, we have over 800 certified teachers in our state.
That is phenomenal. I mean, and I think, you know, you just mentioned it, but it's something that we should still sort of highlight and talk about is the incentivizing of teachers. You know, we're just asking teachers to change what they're doing, but we're not giving them any reward for that. And I think, you know, it's already been talked about the lack of great teachers in computer science. And of course, you know, we don't value teachers in general as much as we should. They are shaping our future workforce. But, I also love the piece about what you did for some of the superintendents that were not having so much activity around computer science. Tell the audience what you started doing.
Well, whenever we required it to be offered, that doesn't mean any student has to take it. And so I was in the marketing business. I've been to over 80 high schools in Arkansas holding high school assemblies, encouraging these young people to take computer science, telling them some of the stories that I just told. And so I was in the marketing business, and I watched it very carefully, and I would get the annual report on how many students in particular schools were taking computer science. And I saw this, one school that was a very progressive school. It was a large school, but they had 0 students taking computer science. So I just picked up the phone and I called the superintendent, and I got his voice message, and I said, "This is Governor Hutchinson, and I know this probably is a mistake, but I've got you down for 0 students taking computer science. Would you mind calling me back and explain what the situation is?" That got his attention. And that word spread among all the superintendents in Arkansas. You don't want to get a call from the governor. They went from 0 to over 100 in a very short amount of time. But, leadership is important, and you've got to market it with the students, with the public, and then the superintendents that resisted it early on, they could see the difference it was making in students' lives and the demand from the students. And that's what's great about educators, whether it's a teacher or a superintendent. If those students want that and it's needed for their future, they become a believer, they're going to make sure that's available for them. And so not only did our teachers respond, but the students did. And I just got the number, if I might share it. So we had, in 2015, when we started, 1,100 students taking computer science in Arkansas. We went up every year, and last year we had 12,500 students taking it.
Yeah, but wait.
And
wait, hold the phone.
Today, I just got the information, because we're waiting for it. For this year, we went from 12,500 students to over 25,000 students taking computer science. And you all know the size of Arkansas. And what happened was that this last year, where in 2015, we required it to be offered in every high school, and we gave them credit for it. But now, because we have the number of teachers that are out there, we've got momentum, our legislature, just like Tennessee, did require it for graduation. And so it went into effect this year, starting with 9th graders, and it'll be a rolling impact. But that's the reason we jumped 10,000 students. Yeah. And next year it's going to jump more. And so it's been a success. And what's nice is that it's institutionalized. Yes. I hope.
Yes. We'll work on that.
So, and I will say Learning Blade has been an important part of it, because you've got to encourage the kids to understand STEM. That availability of Learning Blade in our schools did open up the eyes of students to a broader world that they could engage in. And that's so important when you're dealing with a rural state that their number one economic driver is agriculture. Students have to visualize the massive amounts of opportunity available to them.
Yeah, I always say you can't be what you can't see. And so I think that's really important. And I think, just taking this a little bit further, could you talk a little bit about how you feel like sort of this initiative has helped Arkansas in terms of your business growth and, the climate for businesses growing and coming to Arkansas?
Well, first of all, the whole initiative has exceeded my expectation with seeing what the students, how they embrace it. And of course, I was very naive when we started out, because I actually went out to Silicon Valley, and I wanted to tell Silicon Valley, to Google and Facebook and so on, what we're doing in Arkansas. We're developing the talent. So why don't you move and come to Arkansas? Well, they looked at me and said, "We love what you're doing, and we're going to recruit your students to move out here to California." And I said, "This is not what I had in mind." So I didn't go back out there. But we started recruiting tech companies to Arkansas. And it takes a while, but my goal was for Arkansas to be a micro hub of technology companies. And so we actually invested a couple $1 million a year into accelerator programs. So we brought financial services, startup tech companies to Arkansas, and we would partner with them and we would showcase what we could offer. And our goal was to be able to recruit a couple tech companies every year through that initiative. And so we've grown in our small startup tech companies that can utilize this talent. So every graduate out of Arkansas has got tech companies that they can look at. They don't have to go to Dallas. They can stay right there. And of course, I made the point, I said this over and over again in the high schools, that if you learn computer coding and you have access to high-speed internet, you can run the world from your front porch in Poen, Arkansas.
Yep.
Now, you don't know Poen, Arkansas, but it's a town of about 300. And because of COVID and the pandemic,
Yes, exactly.
people see this now. And literally, I'm running into people that are working off their front porch and working for a global company in Austin, Texas, and they can live where they want to live.
And I think, I mean, you definitely just mentioned that, and that has been something that now remote work is part of our culture. I mean, it could be a good or bad thing depending on how you look at it, but definitely people can have a job for any company they want from anywhere in the world. And, you know, that environment has changed, but we live in a digital economy and everybody needs it. So efforts like CSforAll and the work that they're doing, and of course, code.org and so many others are. But I think, you know, one of the things that's been very exciting over the last year has been your leadership of the National Governors Association. So for those of you who don't know, there's an association called the National Governors Association that all governors, including our territories, are part of. And so you were fortunate to be elected the chair of that this past year. And of course, what did you pick as your national initiative is computer science education. But can you talk a little bit about just the unbelievable response that you had from other governors? Didn't matter what party, et cetera, but everybody was on board with this. Tell us a little bit about that work.
Well, I was able to pick an initiative, and I picked computer science because I see it as a national security issue for our country. And it's not something that Washington can solve. It's an education issue that's led by the states. And so it's a perfect example of what governors can do and states can do. And so we promoted it with regional conferences. And I will say that Governor Bill Lee has been very, very supportive here in Tennessee. He's attended our conferences. He's signed on to our compact. I had a compact prepared, and I asked governors, there's 55 governors of territories and commonwealths and states. And of the 55, I had 50 governors sign on to a compact saying we're going to prioritize computer science education and we're going to put funding behind it.
And I just read yesterday, I was just reading about this, and yesterday I read that was the most successful compact of any kind that the NGA has ever done in its entire existence. And you have that now as part of your resume, so to speak.
Thank you.
Yes.
And well, I mean, usually if you get 20 governors signing on to something, it's a big success story. With 50, and it took a commitment, and so I know over time it will make a difference, and you're starting to see it more. And you're going to measure it by how many states are requiring it for graduation, how many states are putting funding behind it, and those kind of measuring sticks. So it's really going to continue to move forward. Organizations like CSforAll advocating for making sure that we increase in our minority participation in computer science. Those are critical parts of what we're doing as well. So I want to continue to be a national voice for this. Even though my term expires as governor this year, I'm going to have an opportunity as chair of the Education Commission of the States to continue promoting computer science. And I want you to know, I love the arts, and I love history. I love so many different aspects of education. But this is fundamental to the future of life almost, and not, there's a lot more fundamental to life, but to our national security interests, to the growth of our country. We recruited, and this is close to Tennessee, another steel mill over in Arkansas, right on the Mississippi River on the Arkansas side. And so we have Nucor-Yamada Steel, we have Big River Steel, and then we recruited United States Steel Corporation out of Pennsylvania to come. They're building a state-of-the-art steel mill that's going to be high-tech. They're going to pay an average of $100,000 in salary for their employees. And I've got folks coming from Dyersburg, Tennessee over there to work. And so it's a good partnership with Tennessee. We utilize, much of the workforce there. But I say that because if somebody goes and applies for a job there and they understand the fundamentals of software or IT, they can get a job.
Get a great job.
Those are tech companies.
Yeah.
And by the way, when that goes into production, Arkansas will pass Pennsylvania as the #1 steel producing state in the nation.
Wow.
Now, I know you're from Tennessee, so you can't applaud there, but thank you for your good thought.
We do have 37 states here, so not everybody's from Tennessee, but obviously there's a lot of them. But you did mention something that, obviously hit home with me is, getting underrepresented sort of women and minorities and others. And I just always tell this personal story. When I moved to Chattanooga as an engineer, I was an environmental engineer in my former life. And I was working on a project and I wanted to go out to the site to check it. And I could see my boss getting kind of uncomfortable with it. And he was like, "You can't go." I was like, "I need to go measure some." "Oh, you can't go. These people are not going to see a woman as an engineer out there and a woman of color." And he was uncomfortable sending me. And I know we've moved the needle some, but we haven't moved it as much. So besides that, like what do you see as maybe a concern or an opportunity in the CS world that you've been traveling in for so long? What would you like to see us do as we go forward? And these are some great advocates for you here. This is your fan club believing in CS as well.
Well, it's all about role models, and as you said, being able to envision yourself in a particular scientific or STEM field. And so we need to be bringing mentors of color, women into the classroom so that they can see this. We have L'Oreal. It's a makeup company that's French owned, but they're outside of Little Rock, and they got some great scientists there that develop these products. And so they come into the classroom and they talk about their involvement in STEM and the jobs that they have. Ladies do that. And so we've got to have that. And it's really hard as teachers to have that partnership with the private sector. So when I speak to the private sector, I say, you've got to go in to and make yourself available to teachers in the classroom. We've got certified teachers, but they don't have the world of experience, and to be able to bring the diversity into the classroom in the STEM fields makes all the difference in promoting it, encouraging everyone to be engaged.
Yes, and so true. And for those of you that don't know, last week, the U.S. federal government actually launched a new initiative called You Belong in STEM. And so I think, the nation, we understand this importance of STEM, computer science, for sure. But I don't think we would be anywhere close to where we are without your leadership. I just really want to thank you for that, because you have been the role model of what a governor, what a leader in their own state can do. And then many states have modeled after you, and there's always races of who did what first. But, no matter what, just putting it on the map for people, I think is really, really just, we're so grateful. I think this entire audience is grateful for your leadership. So as we wrap up, I don't know where I am on time. Am I good on time? No one's still at me. Oh, everybody's okay, fine. Well, I would just love for you to, as your parting words, to just, this is a room full of educators. We've got the Emphasis Foundation here. We've got leaders of STEM within their departments of ed. I mean, it's quite a mix, as well as many others that are playing in this space. What advice would you give, individuals? Like, what can we do? Obviously, I hear the thing, go in the classroom, got that, and that's very important. But is there anything else that you think we should be advocating for as we continue this challenge movement, whatever you want to call it?
Well, in terms of policy, always make sure your legislators understand what you're doing and the importance of it. Because a lot of things can be done through the Department of Education. You can make changes and you can grow in this area. But if you have legislative support, that means money flows with it. And money is a very important part of a computer science initiative that's successful. And so make sure you build legislative support in terms of policy and what you want to accomplish and expand the initiative. And then I think what we've got to do, and Arkansas is included in this, you start out with the basics of coding and understanding that, and then you expand the capability. But we've got to expand the diversity of our coding programs, so that students that are interested in a different coding language can learn the different languages, that students that want to be able to understand more about data analytics can have that capability. There's blockchain, so there's so many different varieties of it. And at the grade school, high school level, we want to give exposure to these things so they can choose a path. But as time goes on, the demand for more specifics and more intensive course study at high school is going to be in great need. And so I just want to encourage you, the demand's not going to slow down, it's only going to grow, and the diversity of it. And so you're on the cutting edge of meeting the needs of students. And so I just applaud you and believe that you're making a big difference for the students' lives and also for our country.
Wonderful. I don't think we could wrap it up any better than that. I want to thank CS4All and Code Crew and Mecca and Leanne for giving us the opportunity to have you here. And I just want to thank you again.